Recording. There we go.
Now I got it.
Okay. Okay. All right. So you and I, fortunately, are in ideal locations when it comes to transitions moving from one state to the other, right? I think there's a lot of
Yep.
synergy between New York and Florida.
Yes.
And I'm even thinking people move down to Florida where they're at retirement, near retirement, and they're just looking for a different pace. And then the grandchildren start coming up north, and then they either move back up north, right? Or they split their time somehow between the
Yep.
two.
Yep. And so what we did was our kids were very young. We had, uh, were living in Maryland at the time, and we moved here because the grandparents were here already.
There you go.
And now, and raised the kids here. And
Hmm.
now, two of them moved. One's in Louisiana, one's in Kentucky, the other one's here. And we'll never leave Florida. But,
Yeah,
it
right.
just depends, right? But we have absolutely over the years built up a much larger population of younger people. And you
Yeah,
see
I
it
would
in
say
the
so.
schools
Yeah,
and the companies that are here, and it's
yeah.
very different. This is not your grandmother's South Florida
No,
anymore.
exactly. I know I'm thinking of communities. I remember at one time, everyone flocked to Weston. That was like a really nice, young, up and
Yep,
coming community. And
yep.
there was Parkland, right? I mean, those are a few.
Weston and Parkland are beautiful. And the interesting thing about Weston, you get there, you get to like the town limits, and something is different and really pretty, and you don't necessarily realize what. And then it hits you. When they built Weston, they undergrounded all of the power lines. So
Oh,
as far
wow.
as you see, there are no wires.
Right.
And it's the kind of thing like, because it's the absence of something, you don't realize why it looks so nice. And then you're like,
Right.
oh my God, there are no power lines
That's
anywhere in Weston.
amazing. Oh, that's a
Yes.
fun fact. I didn't realize that. Interesting.
Yeah.
Are there any other communities right now that you see that are like the newer communities for young families moving into?
A lot of people have, everybody starting 30, 40, probably almost 50 years ago now, when they started building those western suburbs like Weston and Plantation and Coral Springs and Parkland, moved west because they were new and you got more for your money, and you still get more for your money in terms of
Mm,
house size and land and everything. And they kind of abandoned the east side, like the older urban core, right along the water.
yeah.
But in the past, maybe 10 years, maybe a little more, we see a lot of families coming back east or moving east when they get here.
Oh, and okay. So then closer to the water,
Yes, yes.
or what I think what is it like the dividing line? People ask me sometimes, is it 5 or east or west of the turnpike, right?
Yep, yep. Well, and east or
Okay.
west of 95, and yep, just depending
Okay.
on where you are. So all three of my kids, we actually were in West Boca, and then we moved here when we moved east, way east, when my son was going into kindergarten and my daughters were going into high school. So it was kind of like a now or never.
Hmm. Right.
And the market was great. The market was on fire. And so we sold the house in West Boca and we moved east then. And
Right.
so definitely a very different experience for my kids. It's still the difference between those western suburbs and the east side towns is huge,
Yeah.
depending on lifestyle. Like the kids out west, you know, it's manicured and it's pretty, and and east is organic and a little funkier, but the kids east grow up on boats, which is
Oh,
amazing.
yeah.
Like my
Yeah.
daughter went to homecoming on a boat.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah,
quite an experience.
it's
Yeah.
a hugely different lifestyle. So it really
Gotcha.
depends on what you're looking for. And I'll never forget. So we moved east. We're driving around one day. We've probably been here like a month. And there's this huge empty lot that 20 years later is still just a big empty lot. And my daughter goes, "What's that?" And I said, "What's what?" And she pointed to the land and she's like, what's that?" And I said, "It's an empty lot." And she thought for a minute and she goes, what's it for? And I said, it's not for anything. It's just an empty lot.
That's
And
funny.
that to me kind of summarizes the difference between East and West is
Mm-hmm.
West, pretty much every single piece of land has a purpose.
Got
Whereas
it.
East, it's definitely more old school,
Yeah. Yeah.
and more working class, although it's a funny mix of like you've got some working class, you've got some middle class, and then you have the people with like limitless income and
Mm-hmm.
assets and money.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a lot of very, very high-end private schools out east because they needed to meet that need.
Oh, interest. Okay. That's good to know.
So yeah, so
Yeah.
really, just a very different lifestyle. And
Yeah.
that's why I always tell people you have to really look around and know what you want and know like the kind of life you want and understand the traffic and that, all of those things before you just
Yeah.
pick a place and say, oh, I've heard so much about Parkland or Pompano or Fort Lauderdale or
Right.
Weston,
Right.
learn those areas and then make your decision.
I think oftentimes as a New Yorker, when you go down to Florida on vacation, you forget that traffic exists wherever you go,
Yep.
right? You
Yep.
just assume once you leave New York, there's no traffic. But to your point, yeah,
Yeah.
that's not the case.
I just worked with a couple yesterday that's relocating here from Edison, New Jersey. And they've been here a couple days. They came down about a month ago, and now they want to make their decision. And
Hmm.
it was so funny because they both said, yep, there's traffic. Edison's got traffic, but we also have the beach here. And I showed them this condo. They want to start out with something small, and they're looking over at, the balcony, and they're like, oh, look, there's the pool, and there's the canal that goes to the Intracoastal, and that
Yeah,
is not something we have in Edison.
yeah.
And so, they're going to be like 10 minutes from the beach. So yeah, there's going to be traffic, but you're kind of always on vacation. Or
Right.
you could be, you know what I mean? You get off work Friday
Right.
at 6 o'clock, you're at the beach at 10 after, and
Yeah.
most of the year it's a great time to go. So just a different lifestyle.
Yeah. I would say the trade-off is worth it. Yeah, I would probably deal with a little bit of traffic if I
Yeah.
had the view of the beach and the pool.
Right? It's not terrible.
Right. So I guess let's roll back a little bit. The first thing on the potential selling side is the question would be is do you need to sell? So then that goes into do you know your finances? And it's not just what the value of the home is and what your equity in the home is, but it's your other assets as
Mhm.
well. So it's
Yep.
really a matter of speaking to a financial advisor, um, or your accountant or whatever that looks like for you personally, and get just a clear picture of what for you. And I think that's similar just as realtors too, when we have someone who's interested in buying a home. One of the first recommendations, I think that's the dog, I'm going to have to let him out, that we make is to first of all find out what price range you can make sense for you, that's comfortable for you, and what monthly payment is comfortable for you. I'm
Yes.
not running away. I'm just letting the dog out.
No, and I'm going to turn the light off because there's a lot of backlighting here. So I'll
Okay.
be right back.
Okay. Perfect timing.
Okay,
Okay.
that might be,
Perfect.
well, no, I know what it is. It's the sun streaming in. Hold on. Ah,
Ah. Oh, what a bummer, that sun.
yeah, it's a tough life, but somebody has to do it.
But yeah, again, just getting back to it, understanding your finances, understanding what makes sense as far as purchasing a home, if that's what makes sense, and so we'll go on that assumption, and then it's a matter of your monthly payment, and ultimately, does it make more sense for you to pay all cash? Does it make sense for you to finance the purchase? I know, for example, if someone's retired, it might make more sense for them to pay all cash to purchase the property because they don't show reported income. But there are programs out there that also work for retirees if that's not the
Yep. Yep.
the thing that makes the most sense for them. But again, that all goes into the conversation about what your financial picture looks like.
Yes. And I tell people all the time, what's best is what's best for you individually.
Yeah, right.
That's what
Exactly.
really counts.
Yeah. Yep. I always say that's why there's more than one color of M&Ms in a bag of more than one color M&Ms in a bag of M&Ms because everybody's different, you know. We'll have different things
Yes.
going on. So,
Yep.
yeah, that's the
Exactly.
financial piece. I would say on my end, um, if someone's ready to sell their home, I think before they do anything, one of the first things I do, I actually file a freedom of information request with the town that they live in because who knows if there's an open permit somewhere or there was something that wasn't CO'd properly that they're not even aware of, that we want to make sure we can deal with that before that becomes potentially a problem and could potentially cause them to lose out on a sale. And I say that because I learned from personal experience. I had something that was not properly CO'd, didn't
Oh,
realize it, and I lost that buyer on my home.
oh,
So yeah. So that's
yep.
one of the
We
first things
always,
I do, right? Yeah.
yep. And we do the same thing here with sellers, and well, so here, every state's different, right? We're not an attorney state. So things work differently. But anytime with a buyer title does a title search, make sure there are no outstanding
Hmm.
liens, permits. I just went through this actually with sellers who moved from here to North Carolina, and they didn't realize they had like impact sliding glass doors put in 2018, and the contractor just never closed the permit
See?
and
Yeah.
and is out of business and unreachable.
Uh,
So,
yeah.
but we have most of the cities here have companies called permit expediters, and they know exactly what to do, what forms to file. So we were
Perfect.
able to get through it, and everything worked out. And what
Yeah.
we did was we just did a little escrow holdback at
Right.
closing,
Right.
and then the buyer was kind enough to just, let the inspector in because they didn't have to do anything other than just get it inspected and close it out.
Right. Right.
So, and
Right.
every city is very different, which I'm sure is true on Long Island as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so
Yep.
that's just kind of like I guess the first steps, if
Yep.
you will. And then we always see this online, right? Or whether it's on social media or on, I don't know, a video. Is now the right time to sell my home? Is now the right time to buy a home?
Yeah.
And I think to your point before, every person is different. There's no
Yes.
standard or flat right time for everyone. It's really what your situation is. If you have
Yes.
to relocate for a job, I think it's safe to say, yeah, it's time to sell your home
Right.
and buy something,
It's a
right?
good time for
So,
you to do this.
so yeah, so it really depends. Now, I don't know with since Florida with the winter months, I guess, are busier down there because you have snowbirds. So is it the same in Florida as it is in New York, where people traditionally put their houses on the market in end of winter, early spring, with the anticipation to close based on the school year?
Not so much. School year can be a factor. And we don't really, people here think that during season it's going to be more competitive because we have more people and,
Hmm.
not necessarily the case. And we become much more of a year-round destination.
Okay.
So it hasn't made as much of a difference. And again, and I'm sure you hear this too with schools, do you move at the beginning of summer so that your kids have time to adjust and make new friends? Do you move
Yeah.
at the end of summer so they can have a summer with their friends?
Right. Right.
And again, a personal decision,
Right.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, I kind of cringe sometimes when I hear people say, "Oh, it's the right time to sell," and then they blurt out some type of market statistic. At the end of the day, it's your personal situation
Yes.
and what makes the most sense for you. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. And I know I always say, of course, because we don't really have seasons unless you're really paying attention. Actually, this year we did have what I would call a proper winter. We had many days that were like in the mid 30s, which is
Oh, wow.
unheard of. It
Yeah.
used to be like that here in the winter, and it has not been like that in decades, like literally 40-year records. But it was
Wow.
a nice
Wow.
break.
Yeah.
Anyway, you know, it's we don't really have like a spring market
Right. Right.
like Long Island does.
Right.
It's
Yep.
different,
Makes
and looking for a house when it's snowing is unpleasant, or trying to sell your house, I would
yes,
imagine, right?
to say the
Where,
least.
yeah, where
Yeah.
here what we get is, oh, it's really hot to go look at houses. But that, again, not terrible. Get
Right.
back in the car with the AC. The house is going to have
Yeah,
AC.
exactly.
You won't be shoveling anything.
I know I laugh sometimes when I hear people say, how could you move? How could you live in New York? It's cold in the wintertime. And then the flip side of that is, how can you live in Florida in the summer because it's so hot outside?
Yeah,
Well, like you said, you're going from the house to the car to somewhere else. So
yeah.
whether you're putting the heat on or putting the air conditioning on,
Right, you're doing
it's the
something.
same thing, right?
Yep. So
So
funny.
you make the adjustment.
Exactly, exactly. Do you find, tell me what your market's like right now. I'm just curious.
The market between, well, first of all, it's difficult to find a home on Long Island right now in
Hmm.
the five to $600,000 range.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of activity going on. I'm going to say between 650 and under 1 million. As
Hmm.
crazy as that sounds, someone who maybe not necessarily a starter home that second home, and it could be a forever home, but that second home, they're probably going to spend close to or over 1 million for that. That's still a very strong market. When you get over 1.3 up to 2 million, it's not as competitive. The homes still sell, but it's not quite as competitive right now. And then anything 2 million and over, now your universe, is much smaller. That's a different
Hmm.
buyer. So that those days on market are a little longer for
Yeah.
that. But yeah, that's really the tone of the market right now. And that also is impacted by the mortgage rates right now.
Yep.
So, you know, your money doesn't go as far when you're spending over $1 million. And then you have the mansion tax on top of that when you're spending over 1 million. So these are the
Yes.
things, to consider when you're making that purchase. So yeah. But you know what? I still think it goes back to, I think traditionally, and I think back to when I bought my house. Yes, the purchase price can be a daunting number when you first hear it, but what it really comes down to, like anything else, is what's my monthly nut? How much
Yes.
do I need to have every month to make sure that I can live here and that I'm not house poor? That
Yep.
not all my money now goes to not just the mortgage, and not just the insurance and not just the taxes, but it's the heating bill, the air conditioning bill if you have a pool,
Yep.
whatever you have in the home that you need to maintain then on top of it.
Yes.
So especially with younger couples, just because they're not as experienced with buying and selling homes, they might think, oh, well, I can afford that monthly payment. They get the number from the mortgage lender and they roll in the taxes and the insurance. Okay, that makes sense. And I will then have that motherly conversation with them to say, well, you need to also take into consideration running the house.
Yes.
Again, getting back to whether it's gas or electric, your heating bill, your air conditioning bill, the maintenance. If you have a lawn, who's maintaining the lawn? Is that an additional expense? Is there a pool? That's an additional expense. These are all things, right? And you have the same thing down there too. But these are all the things to consider when you're buying something, not
Yes.
just sticker price.
Yep, exactly. And something that always surprises people here, even though you see it, it doesn't really sink in until you're here, is gardening is a 12-month
Yes, down there,
thing.
you're right. Yeah.
And I like to call it um, a persistently losing battle against the elements because everything grows all the time.
Yeah.
And, again, you live here long enough, you get the seasons, you can see, oh, that blooms at this time, and that, and our seasons
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
are kind of opposite. Like when I was up north, we had tomatoes in the summer, right? The Jersey tomato, all those.
Yeah, yeah.
Our tomatoes here we grow in the winter because they need the cooler nights. But the other thing everybody does is they get here, they buy a house, and maybe it's new construction, and so the yard is kind of bare,
Mm-hmm.
and they say, "Oh, I want to plant," and somebody, a landscaper told me when I first moved here, um, he said, "You're going to spend the first 6 months planting and the next 10 years ripping things out." Like, because they grow so fast and they fill in
Right.
so much more quickly. So that's
Yes.
something else to think about as you look for a place. I love to garden. And I love all our tropical plants and everything, but
Right.
you know, it's always better to overestimate what you're gonna
Right.
underestimate what you're gonna need and just live with that and say, you know
Yeah.
what? I think these five are plenty, and in 6 months they'll be like 2 feet tall.
Right. Right.
Um, but it's fun and it actually is, all kidding aside, it's rewarding because you can
Mm-hmm.
do it all year.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I know
Yeah.
I'm actually having photos taken of a house on Sunday for a new listing, and they're all excited because the flowers now are just starting to come in this week.
Yes.
You don't have to worry about
No, we
that. You have to
don't.
wait the week.
It could have been taken, those photos could have been taken in August or January, and it will
Exactly.
not matter.
Exactly.
Yep, yep.
So
What else do you think that people considering the move from if you're on Long Island and you're thinking selling, what other kinds of things do you go over with people?
up in New York, you're talking
Yes.
about. So there's during the let's start with the selling. During the selling process,
Hmm.
they've now gotten the house ready to some degree for photographs and for people to see their home. So now it's the ugly task of how do I begin packing? And I'll say we're not even going to talk about packing right now. Packing is kind of the second part to that.
Yes.
And it's going through and it's the thinning of the herd. It's going through whether it's room by room or drawer by drawer, right? And deciding as we've all seen what stays, what goes, what gets donated,
Yep.
what stays, what gets donated, what gets thrown out, or whatever those categories are for that person. But it's starting to say, how can I look at my house now and decide what I really want to take with me? And it could even be a sofa, the assumption that they're going to take that sofa with them. But now they found a house where the sofa's not going to fit.
Yes.
So now we have to figure out, are we going to put the sofa up on Facebook Marketplace? Are we going to give it to somebody? Are we going to throw it out? That's like part two then of that piece as far as the contents of the house. Um, and then it's just that punch list again on the selling side. I mean, this applies to the buying side too, but that punch list of change of address. Do you have to change doctors? Your dentist? If do you have to give them any updated information? Um, your again, your accountant, your financial advisor,
Yep.
your attorney, whatever team of people you have that keeps you going on a regular basis. You
Yes.
need to notify all those people. If you have online accounts, um, is there information there that has to be updated? Address information. So I think maybe that's a little bit more of the high level stuff. I'm sure we could get a little granular on that. Then on the buyer side, it's let's start after the inspection, of course, let's start thinking about homeowners insurance. Like we said before, let's start talking about budgeting your household expenses because you're not just paying that mortgage. Um, what does your life look like now that you've moved? Are you going to be using your car more? Did you move somewhere now you're using the railroad or you're using some type of public transportation? So how does that impact that part of your life? You've moved or you're moving from an apartment to a home now. You need to start thinking about, do I need a landscaper? Am I going to do it myself? Do I need to buy a shovel for the snow or do I need to find someone to plow my driveway? So those details on again, I would say those are the details on the selling and the buying side um, during the process.
Yep. And I can, tell you from experience and just seeing it every day, so many people insist on bringing all their furniture here, and then they get it here and it just doesn't work. And
Yeah,
then it ends up in storage because they don't want to let it go.
right.
And then 4 years later, they empty the storage unit and realize what they paid to store that furniture. And it's hard to let go of, I know,
Yeah,
but so many people here do that. And so as a result, if you do bring all the furniture and you decide, no, it's not really going to work, it's actually very hard to sell because everyone else did the same thing.
right,
So,
right.
and
Yeah,
and I totally get the emotional connection, and especially if you're not sure and you haven't seen the house in person or whatever.
yeah, yeah,
Um, it's not the worst thing in the world to bring it, put it in storage, but give yourself a deadline. Like,
right,
okay, it's going to stay
right.
there for 6 months and that's it.
Yeah, yeah.
And
No,
and
that
if I
makes
haven't
sense.
missed it in 6 months, then I'm not going to miss it,
Right,
or a year, whatever the case may be.
right.
Yeah, I remember when the first time I moved here, we had moved from Kew Gardens. We had a summer house in Jersey, and my mom had brought all these whatever these boxes were that were in the basement in Jersey. And 10 years later, we're moving to Florida, and those boxes were still in the basement, unopened. And I was like, Mom, whatever's in there, we haven't needed in 10 years. I don't think they have to come to Florida with
That's so
us.
funny.
But it's human nature, right? It's what we
Right,
do.
right.
We want to hang
You,
on to everything.
we hang on, right? Because we're one day. I think that, don't they even tell women to, like, if we go in our closet, let's say it's the uh up here changing of the season, right? If you
Uh-huh.
go into your closet and you did not wear that sweater last year,
Yes.
why is it still in your closet, right? Get rid of it because you're not going to wear it this year. If you didn't wear it last year, you're not going to wear it this year.
I did the trick where I don't know if you've heard of this, but you wear something in your closet, and when you put it back, you turn the hanger the other way. And then at the end of that season or year or whatever, you can tell by which direction the hangers are
Oh,
how many
interesting.
things you want a whole year without, right? Which is super smart, right?
Yeah,
And easy. And
yeah, yeah.
you know what I did? I saw as I'm going through the year, I saw all those hangers that were still, turned the original way. And I was like, oh, look, I haven't worn that. Oh, look, I haven't worn that. So I guess in a way it was good because I ended up by the end of the year, I had worn every single thing in
Then
that
you wore
closet.
it, right? It
And
was like it was new.
exactly. I didn't have to get rid of anything, but I
It,
did wear it all.
you just made me think though of something, how best to address you're moving from to Florida.
Yeah.
What do you I say it if someone has a fur coat or they have that favorite winter jacket or that favorite something that they wear in the cold weather, what do they do with it? Do they bring it with them? Do they?
So I'm a big fan. And again, especially this winter, we actually needed it. I have a really great long down coat that I love that I actually wore this year because it was in the 30s. But I come back to visit and I don't want to have to borrow or buy or do what, you know what I mean? So I like having that one coat. It doesn't take up a
Yeah.
ton of room. And I have probably 4 or 5 like cashmere sweaters that I enjoy wearing because I don't get
Hmm.
to wear them very often. So I always tell people like almost like either a small suitcase or like a carry-on, like a rollerboard level, size bag.
Hmm.
Maybe a couple of pairs of boots. People here are very funny because they love wearing that stuff. And I'm sure you've seen the memes where, oh, that person on the beach lives in New York because they're in shorts and a
Right,
t-shirt,
right.
and the Floridians in a parka. Um, Partly because we're
Yes.
cold, but partly because we really like wearing that parka. So I would say again, keep like maybe like a week's worth of clothing
Okay, that
because you're
makes
going to want
sense.
to visit, you're going to want to have,
Yeah,
those
yeah,
things. I have a
yeah.
pair of gloves, I have a couple of scarves,
Right,
I have my coat, I've got my sweaters, and, a pair of boots.
right. All right, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, I think this was a really good introduction to how to make that transition
Hmm.
from the north to the south.
Yep. Yep.
um, and let's continue this. We'll talk about what we're going to do in our next
Yes.
conversation with each other. and we'll post this for now.
Yep.
And I would say if anybody has gotten this far with us through the video, that you and I have that Facebook page, Long Islanders Considering Florida,
Yes.
on Facebook. They're more than welcome to join. I'll put something in the comments when I
Perfect.
post this, and we'll see you soon.
See you soon.
All
This was
right.
great. As always, always great to
Thanks,
see
Dawn.
you.
All right. Take care.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.